Every so often, 3 movies come along that make us all go, they seem to fit pretty well together. It's about time we took a look at all those unofficial trilogies, don't you think? What got us thinking about this idea was Leonardo di Caprio's comments about his unofficial trilogy of movies, where he plays a wealthy man in different historical moments. You might even call it the trilogy of greed.
And what does that do to a man psychologically?
It turns out there are way more unofficial trilogies out there when you go looking for them. So grab your popcorn, you've got a lot of binge watching to do. There was nowhere else we could start on this list. It's only fair that we honor his trilogy with the first spot. Django Unchained is first since it takes place before the 2 other films. Tarantino's film presents DiCaprio as Mr. Calvin Candy, a superficial and greedy plantation owner. His rich lifestyle allows him to abuse and mistreat slaves. Candy's greed and behavior is mostly surface level, and we all see how it rots his soul. You can then contrast that character with Jay Gatsby, the alluring mystery from F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel. The film is more clearly a discussion of richness and the elegance of America's roaring 20s. The connection between these films begins to take shape in the 3rd act. We discover the misdeeds and fraud Gatsby is involved with from the beginning. We head to a more modern story in The Wolf of Wall Street. DiCaprio's final character in the trilogy, Jordan Belfort, is the only one who faces justice for his greed by the way of law enforcement. When you look at all 3 films together, you truly get an idea of the role of desire and immoral capitalism in America's history.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
There's still something so iconic about the classic Western movie. Of course, all good things come to an end. Then the Revisionist Western picked up steam, and we were treated to 3 great movies. Start off your trilogy with Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. It shows the darker side of the oil boom and how tycoons abused people's land rights for their own capital gain. It's not the same heroic Western your parents watched. From there, you move on to the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Yes, we know this film looks stunning, and it's worth it for the cinematic language alone. However, the story also builds on those revisionist ideas. We're treated to a different thematic presentation of classic Western tales that involve trust and misdeeds, all wrapped in revised Western tropes. We then round out the trilogy with a more modern take on the New Age Western, No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers dazzle us with an adaptation for the ages. The rustic cowboy, the man in black hunting him, and the sheriff determined to seek justice are all characters we know from older movies. Here, they all take modernized goals and journeys. We think it puts the bow on this trilogy perfectly. Matt Damon is always getting lost. We're not reinventing the wheel here by saying it. However, it might be an excellent idea to watch some of his lost movies in a fun order. Start with Saving Private Ryan. After all, it's the movie where Damon is this mysterious missing figure that a group seeks to bring back. Steven Spielberg masterfully directs the action sequences in this one, and seeing Damon lost was still fresh at the time. Then you can move into another shocking Damon cameo with Interstellar. He's this name we keep hearing over and over, but we're not sure who he's going to be. Sure, Damon isn't the star in this one either. Still, it's hilarious that his character can't even handle being forgotten to time in this one either. Finally, round out the unofficial trilogy with The Martian. Ridley Scott's film gives Matt Damon the center stage, and there's no disguise about him being lost in this one. In fact, it's the reverse scenario from the other 2. Instead, we're treated to Damon's character's effort to survive long enough for his crew to make it back and rescue him. It's like watching Private Ryan surviving instead of Tom Hanks searching for him. People always love to bring up the unofficial Jim Carrey comedy trilogy. Sure, it's nice and all, but let's think outside the box. We're offering 3 movies that feature Carrey characters that separate from reality and bend their own understanding of the world. Bruce Almighty is a great place to start since it's still in the comedy vein. Consider that film a warm-up. Bruce playing God isn't the weirdest thing in the world. Then we shift focus onto his character, Truman. Truman is a living lie. His whole world is a reality television show focused on his false life. Of course, if people thought that movie was weird, they never thought Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind could exist. Here, Jim Carrey teams up with Charlie Kaufman to deliver an outstanding break in reality. Nothing stays the same, and the whole concept takes place mostly in his head. It's the ultimate ending to a trilogy about glitches in this actor's reality. We highly recommend giving this one a chance. Edgar Wright finds the heights of comedy with ease. He places a rhythm in his films that no other director can seem to match. Watching any of his movies back-to-back shows this, but we recommend the Cornetto Trilogy. We didn't come up with it, but it certainly starts with Shaun of the Dead. It was Wright's second film and the first he co-wrote with Simon Pegg. In it, Shaun and his friends and family battle off a horde of zombies long enough to survive. The film has a joke where Nick Frost's character likes eating cornettos to help with his hangovers. The red cornetto flavor featured became an ongoing joke in films co-written by Simon Pegg that also co-starred Nick Frost. Hence the name became the Cornetto Trilogy. The next movie in order is Hot Fuzz, where Pegg and Frost play police officers, and the blue cornetto is eaten by the two of them on patrol. The final, not as popular movie that rounds out this list is The World's End. It's important to note that all the films also feature communities that get in big trouble. Oh yes, pubs also center around the main plot points in all of them. See, it's all connected. Boy, going from the Cornetto Trilogy to the Beige Volvo Trilogy, we're hitting all the fan favorites today. Like the previous entry, this one features a main prop that helps guide this unofficial trilogy's naming. You start with The Rock, which is a 90s action movie akin to a James Bond film from the time. No, we're not just saying that because Sean Connery is in it. Okay, maybe we are. Anyways, its outrageous story moments feel like nothing compared to Con Air. Here, Cage plays a convict aboard an airplane loaded with other dangerous criminals. What's the worst that could happen? It turns out that he's one of the only redeemable inmates, and when a riot kicks up, he's one of the foremost moral people left to stand up to the chaos. It's an absurd premise, however, it only gets wonkier with the final film in this trilogy. Yes, we're talking about Face Off, the craziest of Cage movies. Do we even need to explain this plot? John Travolta and Nick Cage pretend to be each other for like 90 minutes. It's terrific and stupid at the same time. All the films feature a beige-colored Volvo for no apparent reason. It only adds to the randomness of this trilogy. Here, we provided the best gore-flavored horror films you can watch to get spooky and grossed out. Sounds great, right? Start off your night with Hellraiser. It's one of the original blood-heavy films that's loaded with practical effects and disturbing imagery. Even if you've never seen this movie, you've probably come across its main antagonist, Pinhead. Hellraiser is more about cults and hauntings than any real-life situation. It's the only film like that in this trilogy. We recommend going with Hostel to keep the gore coming. It's been getting lost a time, but deserves some more attention. It's about tourists who fall into a trap where rich people pay to torture tourists and end them in cruel ways. Of course, no gore fest would be complete without the modern king of the genre. Take a step back to the early 2000s and check out Saw again. We're willing to bet it's been some time since you've watched the original film in the series. Do yourself a favor and check it out as a ribbon on this disgusting present. Let's stick to the horror theme and dish out a trilogy in honor of the greatest scare master to grace the silver screen. No unofficial scary movie trilogy will match Wes Craven's horror history lesson. You can watch this one in this order: The Hills Have Eyes, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Scream. Or you can flip the order. Either way, the films present nicely. The goal is to see Craven's influence on the genre. He started out as a follower. He took the traits of the time and he tried to build on them. That's where The Hills Have Eyes come in. You'll notice it has many standard horror tropes that we know about today. Then, Craven generated the new age of horror with A Nightmare on Elm Street. He created rules that creatures needed to follow and used those rules to build on the suspense. Everyone knows about the classic horror movie rules now, but he perfected them. Craven then got older and more critical of the genre, and it slid into formulas and mushy garbage. Hence the final film in the grouping, Scream. Craven takes all the structure he built to prop up scary movies and deconstructs them in one fell swoop. It's incredible to watch this history take place over just 3 films. Here are 3 movies that have nothing and everything in common at the same time. Ex Machina kicks off the watch order for a good reason. It's the best film at exploring the ethics and moral questions of artificial intelligence. We watch the program become menacing, and we empathize with Ava. It sets up the stage nicely for the devolution of the concept. The second film in the order is The Terminator. It sets up the clash between a future dominated by AI and the present day nicely. It borderlines 2 concepts: futurism and fatalism perfectly. The viewer gets a taste for the ideas of Ex Machina in a more action-packed setting. Finally, iRobot comes in and offers both the problem and the solution. It's set entirely in the future and provides no peeks into a past that we understand and relate with. However, the AI issues hides behind humanity's own pride in this film. There is a redeemable version of robots and AI, but the flaws brought up in the first two films will always be present. Take all three together, and you have a powerful statement on the potential and danger in AI advancements. This one is a little less serious than the previous entry. We couldn't quite decide how to pair these films up. We could have done a trilogy called Sorkin Gets Snappy About Money and included Steve Jobs, Moneyball, The Social Network, hell, maybe even Molly's Game. But that all felt too obvious. Instead, we wanted its cousin trilogy, Michael Lewis movie deals, to get the last entry. You can watch these movies in any order you like, but personally, we'd go with The Blind Side to start out with. It's one of the weaker adaptations that focuses too heavily on emotion and not the argument being made. The finer points Lewis made often get lost in the shuffle. Then you get to Moneyball. The acting takes it up a notch, and the narrative better encapsulates the details that drive the story. However, even A's fans will tell you it misses with some big moments. We then argue that viewers should end this movie night with The Big Short. It's one that hits every family around the world close to home. So many people were affected by the financial crisis of 2008. The Big Short does an excellent job explaining the causes behind the problem and the necessary details Lewis wants to push home, putting a nice cherry on top of this lecture-driven trilogy. Did this video get you pumped to watch some movies? There's always more content like this daily on ScreenRant's page. You can subscribe to keep up to date. Don't forget to comment and share your favorite unofficial trilogies. Who knows? Maybe this video will turn into its own unofficial trilogy.